Have you ever gone through a period of low energy, constantly worn out and tired, trying desperately every day just to recover? And then, one day, eventually, you actually feel good. Isn't this exciting? I've finally got resources. I can finally do the things I've been wanting to do all this time. But there's a catch. This video is about a massive productivity trap that is a fast track to burnout. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of my time either focused intently on one thing or so exhausted that I can't focus on anything at all. When I'm tired, when I've run out of energy, all I want to do is rest and recover. Being exhausted sucks. I wish I had more energy and I feel like I just can't do the things that I would like to be able to do. But I know that I have to rest, so I attempt to slow down and do less and slowly build up my resources again. And it takes a long time, always a lot longer than I would like, but eventually I'll get back on my feet and feel like I can go out into the world again, which is very exciting. I've spent so long waiting patiently for my body to recover, for my brain to get back into gear so that I can finally go out and do things again. Fun and interesting things like reading or meeting people or solving puzzles or playing games or even working feels like fun when I've been so burnt out that I can't focus on anything. Instead of sitting at home trying to rally my motivation to get up and do the most basic tasks, constantly thinking, can I afford it? Should I drop this today? Is there something else I should be doing instead? Now I have lots of energy. I feel very motivated. I finally don't need to ration my energy anymore. It feels like I'm rich suddenly and I can spend it however I like. Can you see the trap already? The temptation when I'm in this position is to splurge, to use up all my hard-earned, hard-fought recovery energy on some kind of reckless energy spending spree, which is really fun for a very, very short amount of time, and then I'll quickly be broke again and back to square one. In other words, the trap is to think that when I have energy and motivation to spare, that I don't need to care how I spend it. I can be as inefficient as I like now. I can spend as long as I like on any given task. I can hyper-focus as much as I like. I can push myself through difficult things as much as I like because wow, look at all this energy and motivation I have. Except it doesn't work like that. True, I don't need to ration myself quite so strictly, but what good is winning the lottery if I spend it all in 1 week and then I'm back to square one? In fact, if I'm being honest with myself, it's probably my habits of being inefficient in life in general that have led me to burnout in the first place. Now that's a hard pill to swallow. What if it's not what I'm doing that's the problem, but it's how I'm doing it that's the problem? If I want to avoid burnout, I need to find a way to do the same things, but have it cost me less. So what are some of the things that I will commonly waste my resources on? I came up with 6 things that are relevant for me. Others may have a bit of a different list, so let me know in the comments what you're tempted to spend all of your energy on. But for me, the 6 things are work, creativity, socializing, relationships, goals, and fun. So they might not be the best names for these categories, but that's just the first thing that came to mind. So we'll go through them in a moment and hopefully you'll get a sense of what I mean by each of these 6 categories. So the first category where it's tempting to be inefficient if I don't need to worry about how much energy I have, I've called it work. And what I mean by that is basically any task that needs to get done. So this could be doing the dishes, or it could be writing an email, or it could be doing a YouTube video, or it could be any other type of task that needs doing. And the trap, if I have a lot of energy, is to want to spend more, essentially. I will want to spend more time, more energy doing a better and better and better job. And I've talked about this in some previous videos. Sometimes that is a really, really good thing, especially when I'm doing something where spending more time on it actually leads to a better result in the end. And there are plenty of examples of that in life. But unfortunately, a lot of work in life it's really just maintenance. It really just needs to get done. If I'm sending a text message reply to a friend, I probably don't need to spend more than 5 minutes on that. I probably don't need to spend 2 hours getting the perfect wording and then sending it, and then they'll send me a 2-second text back. That is spending a lot of time and a lot of energy on something that doesn't really require that level of work. So with that in mind, what I need to try and remember, even when I'm feeling good and full of energy, is that I have to limit myself and tell myself it's good enough. It's actually done. I can just send it now. I can just stop working on this and it's finished. This is clean enough for now. I'll clean the bathroom again next week. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect, because if I have in my brain that I'm going to do the best that I can possibly do and make it perfect, then the job never gets finished. And that's part of the trap of feeling like I have an infinite amount of resources. I have a lot of resources, but it's not an infinite amount. I end up picking a strategy that assumes I'm going to spend an infinite amount of resources on this thing. So here for me, the mantra is good enough, and needing to find a realistic stopping point to say this is finished now and I can actually move on to something else. In a similar way, my next category is creativity. And what I mean by this is any project that I like to do that is a little bit creative that doesn't actually need to be done. Like, it's not something that is categorized in the work category. I might be drawing a picture or writing a book or doing some other kind of creative thing where I'm putting something together, and it's very similar to the work trap that I want to make it perfect, and I want to keep working on it and keep perfecting it and keep making it better and better and better, because I often can see how to make it better and I want to keep working on it, and that's half the fun of the project. So finding a balance of that between allowing myself to work on this fun project, which obviously that's the goal, is to create something that I feel proud of, and at the same time actually letting it get to completion so that I do eventually finish and I can share it with other people. This is one of the reasons that I used to think that I liked writing music, but I don't really, because it's never finished. I never settle on anything that I'm actually happy with. What I like doing is just playing around and seeing what things sound like, and I never actually get to a finished product in any way that I can move on to something else. So this second category of being creative is essentially making sure that I can give what I can and then realize I need to wrap up, and that's it for the whole project. A strategy that I often use around this is forcing myself to share what I create with other people, like a YouTube video, for example. I used to spend hours and hours and days making one 5-minute video, and I would record and re-record and edit and cut and put things in different places, and it would take a phenomenal amount of time. What's the downside? Well, I had the energy, kind of, but it took so long that I was releasing, I don't know, a video a month or something like that, and it was only 5 minutes, and I wasn't really getting to the heart of what I was trying to say anyway. So creating something relatively quickly in a fun, creative way, and then forcing myself to share it, even though it's a little bit raw, has really helped with that. And in a similar way, I'm trying to write my book at the moment, Unlocking Your Emotional Brain. Now, this book has been in my head for over 10 years now, and I just need to get it on paper. And so one of the ways I'm motivating myself to do that is to share bits and pieces with some closed group of people who are interested and who are going to give me feedback on that, so that I need to share it with someone, and I can't just spend forever with this hypothetical idea without actually turning it into reality. The third area that I find can be tempting to spend a lot of resources is on socializing. And I hear this so often from others in the autistic community who say things like, I love socializing, but it takes me so much energy that when I do it, I can only stay for an hour or so, and then I have to come back home, and then it takes me so long to recover. And that just triggers this memory in my own brain that I know what that feels like. It feels like I have so much energy, I can go out and do the thing, but I do it in such an inefficient way that it burns all my energy basically straight away. So instead, what I do these days is I try to look for social occasions and social gatherings that don't take as much energy. Ironically, a lot of the gatherings that take less energy go for a lot longer time, because instead of being like an intense 1 hour dinner or something, it might be a whole day or a whole weekend, and actually that gives me a lot more downtime. The fourth category I've identified is relationships. Some relationships take a lot of work, and this might be a lot of the time, unfortunately, if I'm honest with myself, because I've been trying to keep a relationship alive that probably it was an old friend and we had a great time, and now we're just not in each other's lives anymore. So trying to hold on to something that is just not working can often take a lot of energy. Similarly, if a relationship is not working, then simply going on and putting in the work doesn't change the dynamic in the long term. What I need to do is either drop the relationship or turn it into a relationship that is working. And the trap, when I've got a lot of energy, is to basically say, oh, I'm strong enough, I can deal with this, I've got the resources, it'll be fine. But then I spend all of my time and energy and resources just maintaining and dealing with a difficult relationship, instead of actually doing something about it to improve the situation. The fifth area I identified is, I've called it goals, and essentially what I mean is some kind of life goal. Let's say I want to run a marathon, or I want to learn how to paint, or I've got a rock climbing goal. I've picked all different hobby analogies, but you get the idea. If there's something in my life that I would really like to work towards, it can be tempting to work really hard towards that goal, but not necessarily make any progress. So in a very similar way, when I've got lots of energy, poor strategies start to become more appealing, or vice versa. A strategy that sounded good in the moment, once I get to the end of a tired week, I'm thinking, I actually don't have the energy to put that strategy into practice. And if I'm honest, that's a problem with the strategy, not a problem with me. Maybe I need to find a better strategy instead of let's just bash my head against this brick wall until eventually the brick wall caves in and I can finally make some progress. Why don't I look for a different strategy that doesn't require such a huge amount of energy? If I constantly pick strategies that require a lot of energy, then it's very easy to sit back and say, well, I don't have the energy at the moment, so I'm going to rest. And when I do have the energy, I'll go back and put in more energy and do the project and make progress on my goals. Whereas actually it's a problem with the strategy itself. So this is a really big one in life coaching. If you're constantly finding that you don't have the resources to implement your strategy, we probably need a different strategy. Even if that is a bit hard to swallow, because I would really love to practice guitar every day, for example, maybe I need a different strategy that's going to keep me motivated and I can actually implement the strategy even when I don't have as many resources as I would like. And the final category I've called fun. And what I mean by this is essentially hobbies and other things that I enjoy doing, and the temptation is to want to do all of the things or to want to spend a huge amount of time. And specifically in my case, I tend to use a lot of my mental energy. So I like things like puzzles and games and things like that. And I can stare at a screen and try and figure out a puzzle for hours and actually that takes a lot of energy from me. Maybe I should diversify a little bit and try some other things that don't take quite so much mental energy. It's the same thing with hobbies I really love. It's tempting to want to do them all the time or to want to do half a dozen different hobbies at the same time. But I need to remind myself that actually, often, less is more. Or the opposite way of saying that is sometimes doing something more gets you less out of it. So I'm actually going to appreciate my rock climbing, for example, which I really love, if I only do it once or twice a week, as opposed to trying to do it every day. Is sometimes less actually helps to enjoy the things that I'm actually trying to enjoy. And for someone with my very, very ambitious brain, that is another really hard pill to swallow, because I want to do all of the things and I want to find a way to be even more efficient and do all the things. And it's the old life balancing act. You know, when you were a kid and they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? They were expecting one answer. You can't list 25 different professions. Like, with one life, I need to live one life. And the really challenging part about that is very often it means prioritizing less things and just accepting that there are some things I would love to be able to do. I've wanted to teach myself guitar for like 20 years and it hasn't happened. And maybe that's just because it's not high enough of a priority and I don't have enough time. I've been focusing on other things which I've clearly decided, at least unconsciously, are more important. I'm really, really heavily focusing on this less is more strategy for me personally this year, which is why I've cut down on a significant number of prior commitments so that I can focus on this one very valuable thing of writing this book on unlocking your emotional brain. And yet still, just because I now have a lot of time and a lot of resources to write the book, what I can't do is write it in an inefficient way. Otherwise, it will still take me another 15 years to write. In other words, even though I now have the time, that's only step one and I still need to be efficient, or at least somewhat clever as to how I use my limited resources. And this is actually one of the biggest questions that people have when they come to me for life coaching. How do I avoid burnout? My everyday life is just wearing me down. I need to find a way to manage every day that just takes less energy. How do I create a life that works so that I have a reasonable chance of successfully implementing my strategy, as opposed to spending every waking second trying to catch up until I'm eventually so burnt out that I can't do it anymore? So there are definitely ways to do that, and I've shared one really common trap in this video today, so I hope you found that valuable. I'd love to hear what resonated most for you, so please leave me a comment if you can. Otherwise, you might like to check out some of my other videos on how to manage burnout. And as I mentioned, I also offer one-on-one life coaching as well, so feel free to get in touch if you feel like that would be helpful. So thanks again for watching. I hope you liked this video, and I will see you again next week. Bye.